Hey everyone, Kevin here, and welcome back to my channel. So, I've been meaning to talk about this for quite a while. Here in California, we have finally placed heavy restrictions, if not total bans, on cell phones in the classroom, which will take effect in July for the 26-27 school year. Now, most states have already started to do this, yes, and I'm sure everyone has seen examples of their local school districts already adopting such measures. Heck, 3 years ago, we talked about the idea of banning cell phones on the podcast that I used to co host on, and it was actually one of our earliest episodes. But as we talked about then, and what I kind of wanted to revisit now a few years later, is the question of, is banning cell phones even a good idea? And well, it's a mixed bag because I agree and disagree with it. On the surface, absolutely yes. But when you dig deeper, you'll find that it won't necessarily have the intended effect that they're hoping these bans will have because of the way that the school system is currently structured. So, to start, let me relate a story. When I was still a teacher, I spent probably hours upon hours of my time telling kids to put away their cell phones. My favorite example was when I had a student who repeatedly refused to do so and literally started vaping in my class while ignoring me and my entire lesson while looking at his phone, if you can believe it. I ended up confiscating this kid's phone, and I told him he could go pick it up from the office after school. This kid, who was actually far larger than I am, got in my face, openly threatened me with bodily injury if I didn't give it back, and absolutely would have if my special ed aide didn't happen to be there that period and also be able to call security to have him removed. Yes, that's an extreme example, but what are the other one that I always show clips of where a kid beat another aide to a pulp in Florida for confiscating one of his devices too? This isn't an isolated issue, and phones are almost becoming an outlet not only for the rising level of student violence, but also as a way for kids to cheat on tests and ignore their teachers. The rise of AI chatbots like ChatGPT, Grok, and Gemini have allowed kids to just type in questions, get responses, and regurgitate them in class or in essays. I have seen so many videos from teachers complaining that the vast majority of student work these days is literally just AI slop that they've copied and pasted into assignments while trying to pass it off as their own work. It really picked up during COVID, actually. And I remember during distance learning and my final year when we came back in person, that I failed probably few dozen kids for repeatedly plagiarizing work that they copied from either AI pages or just from the first result on the internet. I still laugh at one kid who plagiarized an entire essay I assigned about Andrew Jackson when the assignment was actually on Andrew Johnson. Funny in hindsight, yes, but if everyone does that over and over again, it isn't really that funny anymore. This is why cell phones are undeniably a serious distraction to the learning environment and actively make it harder for teachers to do their jobs. No matter how interesting we or the content are to students, or how much of entertainers we try to be, even though I hate that entire idea, teachers will never be able to outcompete with a kid's cell phone for attention or be able to effectively teach material because they won't listen to us and will obviously never learn the critical thinking or research skills needed to actually sort through true and false information. There's simply too much available for kids to do on their phones, like scroll social media, watch YouTube videos, and play video games that are frankly much better at grabbing their attention. And studies have shown that excessive smartphone use ultimately increases anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. And in kids who are still developing psychologically, anything we can do to prevent those kinds of problems should be latched onto. Which is why, on a base level, I am totally for banning cell phones. These new laws will at least start the process of getting students to focus on their academics, their social development, and be more aware of the world around them. So, what's my hang up with banning cell phones then? Well, my problem is that it won't work. Like many problems in school these days, they often come back to the fact that we don't reinforce things at home anymore, and we don't actually hold kids accountable either. It's a bigger problem than just the cell phone ban. And I mean, the desire to help kids by banning them is noble, and I support it. But for those measures to be effective, we have to make fundamental changes both inside and outside of school. Parents desperately need to start reinforcing these things at home again. Give kids a set amount of time on their devices every day. Make sure they don't use them when they're supposed to be doing assigned work, and support teachers by helping us police their kids' phone use while at school. Right now, though, most parents either let teachers parent their kids for them or let them exist on their phones so they can leave them alone. Or both, I guess. And this is true for so much of education now, to the point it's why kids are so fearless about repercussions and openly say, go ahead, call my parents, they won't do anything. And often they're right, and teachers alike know it. The teacher parent relationship has dissolved over the last decade across the world, and until that gets mended to a sufficient degree, I simply can't see the cell phone ban being all that effective on its own. And speaking of which, administrators need to start enforcing discipline policies again, too. If the state is going to mandate cell phone restrictions, then admin needs to support teachers again and actually have kids receive the appropriate discipline for that infraction. Kids are fearless of that too because they know they'll just be sent back to class with a slap on the wrist, even for serious infractions. If teachers are going to still have to police kids' phone usage in class, then we are going to need to see that being followed through on, or else it'll just be another hollow law or discipline policy that admin ignores for the sake of keeping their suspension numbers down and getting promoted. I suppose my point, though, is that banning cell phones is a good first step to regaining some semblance of normal in the classroom. But that's all it is, inherently, a first step. If we don't take the other needed steps, then it isn't going to be effective, nor result in anything meaningful in the long run. Coincidentally, those next steps are also ones which would help schools retain educators and ease the bleeding of the teacher exodus that just doesn't seem to stop, because again, nothing ever gets followed through on. One thing is for certain, though. I can't tell you how much better my life is now that I don't have to say, put your phone away every other sentence anymore, and I know that teachers in the classroom will feel the same when these bans go into effect. But it will only end up serving as a consolation prize to what teachers really need without renewed administrative and parental support. So I hope that comes along with it, or we really won't see much improvement, and these bans might ultimately fail because of it. Well, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to click like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of my awesome content, and you'll also be really helping out the channel. For now, though, I've been Kevin, and I will see you in the next video.